Lionel, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Hey everybody out there in podcast land, it's your old buddy Lionel. Actually, I'm thinking of changing my name to Pep Strebeck. I just watched that movie. I watched the Dragnet movie with Dan Aykroyd and Tom Hanks from back in 1984 or 87. If we need to know the date for sure, we can Google it. Or we could always ask Tony Cook, who seems to know everything about TV and movies, and model railroading and Tyco trains. Anyways, I got a code in my nose. Can you tell? I got a code in my nose. Anyways, I watched Dragnet the other day, and Tom Hanks played the character of Pep Strebeck, who was going to be Friday's partner. And I don't know why, but that name's just sticking in my head. So it's not Lionel talking to you today, it's Pep. P-E-P, Pep. Pep Strebeck. I just did something really cool. I was in Tennessee at scaletrains.com where they had an excursion on the Hiawassee River Railroad, which was really neat. And I was down there with Shane the Young Gun and James Wright and Cody Grivno and 250 other really cool people, Campbell Rice, and I met Tom Klomoski and Tim Garland and Dale Bryant. Dale Bryant did the coolest thing. He gave me like a bag, 3 or 4 dozen dimes for scale made into pins, like, you know, pins that you put on your hat or your lapel. It's really cool. It's a dime pin. It was really cool. Thanks, Dale. That was the coolest thing ever. And what else do I have to tell you? Oh, yeah. The reason I'm doing this is because we're about to start episode number, don't tell me, let me guess. I can tell you. I know which episode it is. I'm positive I know which episode it is. It's episode number 123. And episode 123 is Adam Pinales. I've decided that the podcast is going to be all Adam all the time. No, that's not true. But it just worked out that in February I had interviewed him again. And then we had the whole big boy excitement, the big boy excursion train from Cheyenne, Wyoming to Ogden, Utah, and he was out chasing that. And then he was on another podcast with Otto Vondrak, the editor of Railroad Model Craftsman and associate editor of Railfan and Railroad. And then Otto was on, and I had Adam on with that because the two of them were chasing the big boy. And then what else to do? Then I did another 30 minutes with Adam, but I don't think we've heard that. Anyways, Adam has been an engineer on the Utah Railroad. He's a conductor for Amtrak on the California Zephyr, he does 2 runs a week. One goes to Grand Junction, and the other one goes to Winnemucca. And he has a 7.5-inch gauge railroad that he's building a 2.5-inch scale narrow gauge locomotives for around his house. He has an N scale layout. He installs decoders. He has a garden railway. I mean, this guy's always going on. Which is perfect for a podcast about model railroading and railroading in general. And also, if any of you would like to be on the podcast, pay attention to one of the reasons I end up talking to Adam so much lately is he speaks up very clearly, like many of our regulars on the podcast. Like all of our regulars on the podcast, semi-regulars. He speaks up, got lots to say, so he ends up on the podcast. So if you'd like to be on the podcast, there you go. You just need to speak up and have lots to say. So I think I've covered everything. I still got a coat in my nose. I had some grapefruit for dinner. Yeah, I had grapefruit for dinner. That's right. I had a lovely pink grapefruit for dinner. No, I had grapefruit for breakfast. And I think I'm going to cut the grass this afternoon. So I guess the reason I've done this is to tell you that, okay, we've had lots of Adam in the last month, but that's because he speaks up and it's just the way it's worked out. That's just the way it's worked out, basically, is what I'm trying to tell you. In a roundabout way, what I'm trying to tell you is the reason Adam's been on the podcast a lot in the last month and a half is because that's just the way it's worked out. Okay, that's it. Now we're going. See ya. Subway chime. Go. What's doing, Bruce?
Doing what?
Hey man, what's doing? What's
Well,
that?
you know the way it goes.
Yeah. It's,
Like this, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of something else, all rolled together.
You know what I just realized?
What's
Realized this, and I think you're going to agree. This is an idea I'm just floating out there.
You're thinking you're like Maynard G. Krebs or something like that?
I'm just floating this idea out there. I'm interested in your response.
Fair enough.
AML should have a secret handshake.
We can't even walk and chew gum at the same time. How are we supposed to work a secret handshake?
Well, that's why the idea is I just float them out there.
Oh, okay.
Here's the way I describe ideas. I described this to my loyal staff many years ago. I see ideas like jet planes on an aircraft carrier. Some of them just thunder down the runway and take off, no problem.
Yeah.
Some of them right into the ocean.
Uh-huh.
So, some of them are great. Some of them are powerful and strong. And some of them are like, okay, well, that one didn't work.
Oh, like the expression went over like a Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, like a Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
So tonight, Bruce, I believe this is our first podcast since the last podcast we did.
Yeah, I checked the notes the other night after that. So I did make a note. We did a podcast first after the last. But that was like the last one after the last before. So this should be the first after the last one after the last before.
Yeah. We should keep a running tally.
Yes.
A tally.
Let's start at 1.
Yeah. Let's see if we can just start. Starting would be good. Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
It's a novel concept.
Do you remember that guy, Adam Pinales?
Yes.
The one-man whirling dervish. He
is a one-man whirling dervish.
Yeah, I know. He restores Mustangs. He single-handedly restores full-size steam locomotives.
Yeah, how cool is that?
I
wonder if we can make a Mustang into a steam locomotive.
Wow. We'll ask him. That'll be like the first.
Or tart up a steam locomotive look like a Mustang.
That'll be like the first question we ask him. Can you make a steam locomotive into a Mustang?
Yes.
Or vice versa.
Or vice versa.
And he has a business called Model Prospector, where he's like selling cool stuff. He's just doing all sorts of stuff. So I figured the only possible way we could keep up with him is if we talk to him again.
Pin him down for an hour. See what he's doing.
You know what? I don't like to make jest of people's particular situations. But have you ever seen pictures of Adam?
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to take about 5 of us to pin him down. All right. He is a large man. What's that from? Oh, from Christmas Vacation.
Yes, that's right.
He was a large, beastly man. All right, let's get him out of the green room.
Okay, I'll run on down there. Mr. Pinales, are you there?
Yeah, holy God.
Who was in there last before him?
I forget. Ken Patterson. There you go.
Oh, could have been. All right, Adam, come on out. We'll rescue you, man.
Whoa. God, man. You'd think after 2 years you'd have cleaned that place.
You'd think that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. That would have been a good idea.
I'll write that on the whiteboard there.
Yeah.
Call in cleaning crew.
Yeah.
Shrimp may have gone off.
Yeah. Write that down. You put that a note on the whiteboard. Yeah. See if anybody pays attention.
Yeah, let's be like any other notes.
So what's happening, Adam? What's news?
Not much, man. How are you guys doing?
We are doing,
great,
but
man.
I've been following you. I know where I'm going to start. I'm going to start yesterday, or was it yesterday that Walker Embry stopped by?
He did. That's a cool cat, man. He's a cool cat. That's a cool story of being him too, honestly, because I met him, just like I met just about everybody in the last 3 years off the internet. And he built that N-scale MKT railroad, which just floored me because I've never seen anybody model the MKT in that era. And the biggest reason it got my attention was my dad worked for the Katy. My biological dad, he worked for the Katy during that time, and has a massive photo collection of
Wow.
that red scheme, the 60s and 70s Katy era. And so when I saw that, I instantly messaged him and said, "Dude, you're my new little hero," and instantly became friends. So been talking over the internet often. Helped him with some DCC stuff, and he's just a cool, good friend. And when he ended,
where did you see the layout? Like, how did you see it?
There's one of the N scale groups that honestly, it's where I met Peter too. The N scale model trains that he posts there all the time, and I think he just posted some photos there, and I just followed the rabbit hole there.
Okay. By Peter, you mean Peter Borchert from England?
Yeah.
Okay. Did Peter ask you for money? He has a tendency to do that.
No, he hasn't.
Well, be patient.
All the time.
Yeah, just be patient.
Yeah.
Throw it in the pot.
What's that? Throw it in the pot? Yeah.
Yeah, we throw a bunch of money in the pot so we fly them over here.
All right. Bruce?
Yes.
We have to make sure that we don't talk over Mr. Pinales so that we don't screw up his connection.
Okay.
All right. So where is...
Can I ask the first question that we wanted to ask?
Absolutely.
Knowing that you work on Mustangs and locomotives, we want to know, can you make a steam locomotive look like a Mustang and vice versa?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Pitter patter. What's your favorite What's your favorite Mustang? What year?
Yeah, that's a good question, because my very first car was a '66 Mustang, so I kind of have a thing for those. But my second car was a '69 Mach 1, so I have an equally fascination with those. So 66 and 69, I'd have to say.
Yeah, I think I would be more partial to the 66. My brother-in-law had a 67, and I remember that was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I barely fit in them anymore. It's not like when I was in high school, I could fit right into that thing. But the '66, it's a small little car.
Well, you know what? My son pointed this out to me not that long ago. We saw like a '68 Camaro going down the road, and he said what people don't realize is they weren't very big cars. Those early Mustangs and Camaros.
No.
Yeah, it's funny when you see them parked next to something else. It's like, holy cow, Honda Civic is twice the size almost.
I know, it's very cool. And then they pack those gigantic motors in them.
Yeah.
It was like strapping yourself to a 350, you know?
And everybody thought Wile E. Coyote was crazy. We've been doing it for years.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So, all right. So so you and Walker hooked up, and then he stopped by on his way because he's made a big trip from, where did he leave from?
Somewhere in Missouri. He kept on saying where he lived, but I never really actually caught it. It was some little town in Missouri. All I know is he said he was the only N-scale guy there. And I said, well, you were the best then. So
yeah, that was a beautiful layout he had.
It was a beautiful layout, and I was super excited to be able to meet him. He ended up staying up in Ogden, just about an hour and a half north of me, for a day, waiting for me to get home from work. So as soon as I got home, I took a nap and jetted up there and spent the day with him.
And where is you went to the Utah Railroad Museum or something?
Yeah, Utah State Railroad Museum. And
it's up in Ogden, is it?
Yeah, it's in Ogden, at the Ogden Union Station. So they got a bit of equipment there, and it's a pretty cool place. It's going through some growing pains right now, but it's hopefully it lasts. Hopefully it grows through them.
And does it have anything that runs?
Well, interesting enough that Rio Grande locomotive that I took a picture of us in front of, that still runs. It still fires up and runs. It quit running in 2008, I believe. And I used to run that locomotive when I worked for Utah Railway. Every once in a while, I'd come into the yard and I'd have to move things around with it. So it's kind of I was one of the last engineers to run that one. It's kind of interesting. There's a locomotive I used to run that's now in a museum. I didn't think I was that old, but
Yeah.
I guess I'm
How old are you now?
36.
Oh yeah,
36.
that's really old.
That's like dangerously over the hill, ready to pack her in old.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, when you work for the railroad since 18, there's about 450 days in a year at the railroad, so it adds up.
So let's give everybody a quick recap. You went at 18. You went and started working for the BNSF. Is that right?
Yep.
And you became an locomotive engineer.
Within a year, yeah. By the time before I was even legally able to drink, I was running trains. I worked as a conductor for 3 months, and then immediately after our training period. So I guess it was a 6-month training period. So I took an engineer bid and got that. So by the time I was 19, just after 19, I was an engineer.
And the first locomotive, it seems to me, the first locomotive you ran was, let me guess. I don't remember.
It was an HLCX. I think it was a Jeep 38.
Yeah, I was gonna say SD45. I wouldn't have been that far off.
No, we had we had a whole slew of SD40s there for a while that we ran, but it was weird. The craziest thing is right before I was 18, I worked for the Heber Valley Railroad for a lot of years and on steam locomotives, and as soon as I got to a real railroad, professional railroad, so to speak, I went right from steam to more modern power. It was kind of a backwards progression.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. Your story is very, very cool. What episode were you, like 99 or something?
99.
All right, well, at least I remembered that much. And,
Yeah, starting to impress me.
And then you worked, your dad owned a hobby shop, because your stepdad owned a hobby shop, and you and your stepdad progressed into restoring Mustangs, and then you ended up being like a volunteer on the Heber Valley Railroad, and blah blah blah, and eventually, and after being a locomotive engineer for a while, then you ended up on the California Zephyr as a conductor.
Yeah. Fast forward through a bunch of little railroads, a few bad decisions, and a couple kids. I ended up at Amtrak.
And how long you been doing that now?
Oh man, I'm coming up on 8 years with Amtrak now. So
Really?
it's been sorry, yeah, because I started with Amtrak right when my youngest daughter was born, and she will be 7 in June. So yeah, 7 years, coming up on 7 years.
And you're still enjoying it?
Yeah, I am actually. It's what I enjoy most is it's not as railroading as sitting on a coal train all day. So it's allowed me to get back into the hobby, building model trains and stuff, and that's what I probably enjoy the most. But I do really enjoy hanging out with the people and traveling and kind of just.
Yeah, like that's a neat story. How much and I think that's a really neat part of the story is how much you enjoy being a conductor, because you enjoy the people on the the customers, the passengers on the train. Like, I think that's a really neat story.
Yeah, I had full intention of going back to, when I started with Amtrak, as going back as an engineer, just going back through the ranks and just and becoming an engineer as soon as I could. But it was really fun, actually just being a conductor and dealing with people and people's issues and just being somebody. It was cool because I mean, you as an engineer, you're an engineer, and people like that when you talk about it, but you're just, especially now, it's like I think the railroads have tried to really make the non-human aspect of it. I mean, because before you saw everybody hanging off a train, there's engineers hanging out the windows. We didn't have air conditioning. The windows were wide open. We were hanging out. You saw everybody. There's a caboose. There was conductors. People knew there was people on the train, and they always wanted to wave at them and stuff like that. But now you see a train go by, it's like you can barely see anybody in it. The windows are tinted, they're shut. There's not much human aspect to the railroad anymore, except if you're a conductor for Amtrak, and that is really, really cool. Like I like that.
That's a great point.
How would you like to be in the position of the the poor guy stuck in the snow in Oregon.
You know, I had a feeling you guys were going to ask me about that.
Before we go on, I wasn't. I had said to Bruce, let's not ask him that question. And then Bruce said, no, I'm going to head and ask him.
I actually, I have a friend that is on that train.
Right.
And he just barely got home. It looked like, based on Facebook, he just barely got back. I don't know if he was on it or if he was actually waiting for it to get to wherever they crew change at right there. But they ended up shipping him home. But I think I've been on a couple. I've never been on a train that was that late or in that kind of a situation, but I have been on some extremely late trains, and people are not happy. And the challenge is to make them happy. And it's pretty amazing when you can take somebody's situation that is absolutely out of anybody's control, even yours, and make the best out of it. I've never really had a situation where I've got somebody that's completely just nuts about their situation. I've usually been able to turn it around and at least point out some of the benefits. Hey, we're still breathing. I mean, it could be way worse.
Yeah. Well, because I heard of that and thought back in the 50s where Southern Pacific had that train stranded for a number of days up in the mountains, and I can't imagine what it'd be like. That here we are. We're not going anywhere. Let's
this is it, man.
Do what we can do. Yeah.
But I think
this is it.
I think being stranded on a train would be a lot better than spending 8 hours on a plane.
And 90% of the time, that's what I always tell people. It's like, you could be at an airport going nowhere right now.
Yeah, like at least on a train you can walk around. You got a lot more room. The seats are bigger. I mean, it's just a whole different ball of wax.
Yeah, but I think the biggest problem is I think society's gotten so disconnected with just reality, and everything at work is so fast nowadays that thinking about sitting on a train for 2 days is just asinine.
Yeah,
But I think once somebody does it, actually disconnects from their phone and the social media and all that kind of stuff for a couple of days and just watch the country go by, I think that it gets them back to that reality for a second. And I've never really met anybody that didn't like it.
Yeah, and the other thing too is I'm assuming the train had power that you could keep everything running, and they'd be able to charge their phones and yada 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 and all that.
Yeah, as long as they didn't run out of diesel fuel, they had power. I mean, that's from what I read. That's why they didn't take the passengers to hotels, because most of the hotels didn't have power, so that's why they left them on the train.
Okay, well that makes sense. Yeah, I'd rather do that. I'd rather be on the train with power than be at a hotel without.
Right. Oh yeah. I think I'd agree. They had food, they had water, they had power, they had heat. I don't know what else you need.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so now let's start. Let's see. Let's go from the smallest to the biggest. So you got an N scale layout, and the last few weeks, I've seen you posting pictures about you're making your helix and stuff. So how's the N scale layout going?
I am about 20 feet of track away and a bunch of wiring from running this thing.
Really? And what's the size of it?
It's 2 bedrooms. I have no idea. I should have kept track of how many pieces of track I laid, but it's a lot.
So it's two levels and 2 bedrooms?
It's technically 3 levels. Maybe 4. If you wanted to really get crazy with it, you could say it was 4.
Wow, you're out of control. Buddy.
There's a staging level, and then there's the main level with all the yards on it, and then there's 4 helixes, and then there's a level. The one level is technically 2 levels because it doubles back on itself and goes back in. So there's 2 different levels in that one level. So that's kind of where I get the 4 levels from. But, realistically, I would say it's 3 levels.
Yeah, okay. And you're trying to get it ready because next year the convention's coming to Salt Lake City.
Yeah, this year.
Oh, that's right. It's this year. The NMRA convention's coming to Salt Lake City, and you live just basically a little bit southwest of Salt Lake City, do you not?
Yeah, about an hour, 45 minutes directly south, yeah.
And I'm assuming they're going to have a tour bus that heads in your direction, because not only do you have an end scale out, you also have outside. What do you have outside?
I've got the 1 to 20 scale layout, which is narrow gauge on G scale or G gauge, and then I've got the 2.5 inch narrow gauge on 7.5 inch gauge track that runs around the yard.
You're nuts, man.
Nice.
How do you find time to do? Are you like, how do you organize your time? How do you know which to work on next?
You know, it's just a little whirlwind that I have going around here. I kind of I'll do something here, and while this is setting up or curing, I'll go do something over here, and while that's doing whatever it needs to do, I start doing something over here. I just kind of walk around the house and do a couple things everywhere I end up.
Yeah, and how many times a week do you do the train? Because you run from Salt Lake City to Grand Junction, Colorado, right?
Yeah, once a week I go to Grand Junction, and then once a week I go to Winnemucca, Nevada.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. So, like, you go one direction and then you go the other direction?
Yeah, I've got just about 750 miles of railroad that I cover.
Okay, and how far is it from Salt Lake to Winnemucca?
It's pushing. It's a little over 300 miles, 350 miles or so.
Okay, and because it seems to me your run from Salt Lake to Grand Junction is 6 hours if everything goes about right.
Yeah, and that's just about 300 miles right there.
Okay, and so is it roughly the same amount of time to go the other direction?
It's about an hour longer to go the other direction, but it's also more miles. I think it's just under 400 actually to get to Winnemucca.
Okay, cool. So, all right. So, like, say, what's a typical week? Like, what days do you go from Salt Lake to Grand Junction?
My week starts on Wednesday night, and I know you asked about Grand Junction, but my week starts on Wednesday night. I go to Winnemucca, Nevada. I leave to work at 10 o'clock at night, and I get there at about 6 in the morning. And then that Thursday I come home. I get home early Friday morning, about 4 a.m. And then I'm home all day Friday. And then Saturday morning, about 2 o'clock in the morning, I go to Grand Junction, get to Grand Junction about 10 a.m. And then I'm there all day Saturday, most of the day Sunday, and come home Sunday afternoon at about 4 o'clock. And I get home about 10.
Okay. And so then you don't head out again till Wednesday
night. So I'm really technically only gone from my house Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And so where do you stay in the same place at Grand Junction?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And then we've been staying at the same hotel forever, and we just changed new hotels. I think it's been 3 weeks now, and it's kind of nice. It's just across the street, so it's kind of odd, but it's just kind of like we moved, you know.
And do you carry like modeling stuff with you, so that gives you something to do?
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh yeah. I pack a lot of models with me. I do a lot of decoder installs, a lot of paint, a lot of switch building, a lot of signal building, just whatever I need done for the next, projects but a lot of custom work for other people.
Yeah. So how much of a layover do you have at the end point before you come back?
In which city?
Either one.
In Winnemucca, I have a 11-hour layover, and in Grand Junction, I have 28-hour layover.
Wow. So Winnemucca, you get a bit of a snooze and you're ready to go again, and Grand Junction, you can have time to do something.
Yeah, at Winnemucca, I have a hard time sleeping there. I think all of us have a hard time sleeping in Winnemucca because it's an all-day thing. We don't have our schedule's so weird that we have like a graveyard shift, then a swing shift, and an early morning shift, and we have like all 4 shifts in 1 week. So it's kind of hard my sleep schedule's crazy, like it's super nuts. But so when I get and Winnemucca is not a really great hotel by any means. So when we get there, I usually only sleep about 3 or 4 hours, and then I have 5 or 6 hours to do whatever, which is usually a lot of decaling projects or switch building or something like that.
Yeah, when you say Winnemucca, I just don't imagine it as being a big town.
No. No,
It sounds like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Winnemucca, in Nevada, it's a hell of a place. Every restaurant there says they're the best food in town. Best Chinese food or best Mexican food, and they're all right because they're the only ones.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of a restaurant called Because I Like Sushi?
No.
Oh, well, it's the only place it is in Busted Knuckle. It's the only one we know of.
Oh.
It's run by our friend Boston Joe Cummings. He owns it, but he doesn't claim to own it. And I know that he's a silent owner, but it's a very nice place at the corner of Clark and Kent Streets.
Oh, cool.
Okay. So before we leave the basement and the N scale layout, you're making pretty good progress, steady progress, and now I see you've started some sort of dealership for ESU.
Yeah, what's crazy is I started Prospector Models. I just needed a name. I was actually, it's funny because I was doing a lot of the 3D printing long ago when I first found out about it. I don't know if it was when it first came out or not. I doubt it, but when I first found out about 3D printing and when you could do, make models, it fit N scale so well because it's just small and easy. And so I was like, well, here's my chance to start doing all the stuff that I've always prayed somebody would do in N scale, which is never going to happen until I 3D printed it. And now it seems like everybody kind of copied it. But I 3D printed the entire Prospector train from the Rio Grande. And so I just kind of named it Prospector Models. And I did pretty good with those, actually. I did a 10 sets of completely finished locomotives and cars and dressed them all, set them all, and displayed them really nice in cigar boxes and made pretty good money on those. So I was like, I'm going to start just doing some custom work here and there. And so I did, and that's how I've always just had Prospector Models. Well, fast forward to the ESU thing, all of a sudden nobody was dealing ESU in Utah. Like you could get all the other decoders and stuff, but you couldn't get any ESU stuff, and that's what I wanted to use. So I decided, I wonder if I could be a dealer, and about a month later, I was.
Huh. And so let's back up here. You did 10 sets of the Prospector train in N scale?
Uh-huh.
And is there photos of that anywhere? Because I'm on your Facebook page, but I don't see it. Do you have photos of the train anywhere?
Let me see. Yeah, I do. I've got some video. Are you on not on my personal Facebook page, but on my railroad Facebook page, there's a few, I'm sure.
What's your railroad Facebook page called?
Soldier Summit and N scale.
Okay. Well, that's a lot shorter than the H.
Yeah, I was going to hurry and try to change the name real quick and give it some 3.5 sentence long name just to fit in.
So it wouldn't be like the Tom Jacobs reading cross line in a building out behind my house with a purple roof, or the HO scale Sheridan Sheridan, Wyoming, Pacific.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was it called? What are you going to say, Bruce?
I was going to say, yeah, he needs a longer name. Sheridan, or Soldier Summit and N scale. It's too easy.
It's too simple.
Right.
It's like right there.
It should be like Soldier Summit, modeled in the past of 1950, August 1st to.
Would it be in the mobile photos? I'm looking now. I'm gonna look.
Probably. For some reason, I can't jump into it like I thought I could.
Yeah, I took it over and I closed it too.
Yeah, you probably did.
Wow, it's got a lot of helix pictures.
Holy moly! This helix. How many levels is this helix?
Which one? The one I just built?
Yeah, well, the one that there's pictures of. It says February 20th, so it must be the one you just built.
Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9, 10 levels.
And did you have any particular trick to building that, or you just kind of winged it, or what?
I drank a lot of beer.
I was going to say, is alcohol involved in that one?
Yeah.
After about level 3, I need something. Yes.
Oh man, I swear to God, I'm never building the helix again. because I mean, I've designed a lot of model railroads, and every one of them had a helix in it, and I'm glad I know why I've only built one, and but this one's the epitome of them. It has 4 of them, so
Yeah, you got more than one helix on this layout, don't you?
yeah, there's 4 helixes. I mean, I don't know if this one counts. It's only 1.5 loops, but I'm going to count it as a helix anyway. But
Sure,
I've got
if it goes up or down, it has to be.
yeah, the first helix is 3.5 loops. The second helix that you'd come to is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5.5 loops, and then you've got the monster over there, and then the little one up here that's 1.5.
And you got anybody that wants to see it, go to Soldier Summit in N scale. And you got one of the first picture I clicked on is this really cool panoramic shot. And Bruce, when I work it, it just goes around in a circle. I've never seen a panoramic shot that just goes around in a circle like this.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I got done drinking beer, so I imagine that.
How did you do you know how you got it to be a continuous panoramic? Do you know what you did, or is that just?
I have no idea.
There you go.
Like I was just on my phone and took the picture.
Yeah. That's why you fit in so well with the Modelers Life group, because you have no idea and you're drinking beer.
Yeah. I just here we go.
I love the clouds you did on your backdrop, and I mean
those are very nice. Yeah,
they're really cool.
Hey, I've been studying cloud pictures for like 2 months trying to figure that out. Clouds are I was really scared. I didn't want my backdrop to look like the Simpsons opening credits, you know?
I think Adam, you're the first person who's ever said that.
Yeah, I think so.
What was your motivation of the backups? I didn't want it to look like the Simpsons opening credits. That's beautiful.
I'm gonna have to. You know what? Now that even though you made a smart remark about me not getting you a headset yet, I'm gonna have to get you one now. And because we gotta have this. So did you have any idea? Like this one helix that I'm looking at, you had like it looks like 2x2s or something like that, and you cut grooves into them for the different levels as it went around.
Yeah, I dadoed those on the table saw. Like I got a lot of time to sit and think on the train. You know, I've got 6 hours each direction, and I'd sit there and just kind of draw and sketch and do math, and you know, the only thing that I'm decent at academically is mathematics. So I kind of figured that all out with the helix, and then it looked great on paper, and I came home and started cutting wood, and none of it worked. So I was like, well, let's try it again.
Yeah.
And I tried. The first helix I built, I actually built one. I built it 3 times because I kept on trying to redesign it or come up with a cool way of doing helix. I was like, the first one I used bolts or threaded rod, and that didn't work the way I wanted it to. And then the next one I used like a spline. A lot of people do that spline style road bed. I decided, that's going to make a perfect circle.
Right.
And it does, as long as you have the geometry laid out in all 4 corners to do that. And well, mine ended up being a weird oval, and it didn't quite work out. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna, because I did not want to cut out individual pieces like I ended up doing quarter circles that are like, you know, look like C shapes or whatnot. I did not want to do, but I ended up doing it. And one day I just built the bullet, went down and bought 3 4x8 sheets of 1/4-inch plywood, and just sat down and just started tracing and cutting these little things out. And I ended up just doing it all, and then made the riser, and it worked out. Trains go up and down, they don't derail, so I'm not changing it.
That's a plus.
So now I've managed to scroll my way along to the photo of the Southern Pacific locomotives. So Bruce, scroll your way along to the Southern Pacific locomotives. So you painted those?
Yeah.
So you custom there, and that's N scale.
Yeah.
Man, that's a beautiful job. Of course, now we need to let everybody know that you paint your own Mustangs and everything.
Yeah. I've painted. I paint just about everything. I'm pretty particular when it comes to paint. Like you were talking about that one post I posted on the Modelers Life page about paint when who was it? Spoon was talking about using acrylics and stuff, and I was actually down here painting those models at that time. So when I listened to that podcast, so I ended up going off on a kind of a rant on paint.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, that's a beautiful job. And
the thing that amazes me is those N-scale signals that he's built.
oh yeah, well yeah, we got to get to that as the N-scale signals.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry, I scrolled ahead.
Oh, you can't scroll ahead. If you scroll ahead,
I was too excited, man. I was too excited.
All right, let's talk about these N-scale signals that you built, because I saw you were showing them to Peter Borchert, and he was
Yeah.
So how did you hand built all your own N-scale signals?
I did, and it's the only way. Like all the signals that are produced in N scale are just, well, they look like they belong on the opening credit of The Simpsons.
So can I ask a question? Are you a Simpsons fan of some sort by any chance?
I was for the first few years, but then it just never went away. And I kind of, after, I remember when The Simpsons came out, I was younger than Bart Simpson.
Yeah.
And the time that I was is the same age of Bart Simpson, I thought that was super cool. But then when I was like 16 and he was still in 4th grade, I thought it was kind of weird.
Man, oh man, I tell you, buddy.
So you scratch built all those signals?
All those signals are scratch built out of brass. Yeah.
Wow. Like, are you nuts?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It is. It really is.
Absolutely amazing.
It really is.
Okay.
I mean,
now, are you using LEDs in those or fiber optic?
I use fiber optic.
Okay, I can see one with the fiber optic pulling out of it. Yeah.
And the reason that I used fiber optic is because when I melt the end of the fiber optic and pull it back into the signal head, it actually produces a scale lens. And I have a photo of that somewhere on there that it actually, it looks like there's a bulb back there and then there's a lens. So it looks really cool. One of the biggest reasons I don't like the LEDs is because they're just so bright. And there's not a signal out here on the real railroad. And well, they are now because they switched them all over to LEDs. But I can tell you right now, all the years that I ran trains, we'd be flying down the railroad and you could barely see a signal until you got right up to it. So I kind of wanted to make it difficult to see signals on my railroad because it's difficult to see the signals in real life.
Yeah. Well, I remember our friend Mike Burgett, who works on CN out of Pontiac. He was telling us when they were switching over first to the LED signals, they were too bright. They had to scuff them up a bit. They were blinding the engine crews at night.
Yeah, they're bright, man, and that's the last thing I wanted. Is like, you come down to my railroad room and it's fairly decent size, but if all my signals were lit up, this thing would look like a spaceship. It'd just be bright lights everywhere, and I didn't really want that, so I wanted it to be really toned down.
you're gonna have to send me your address, because you're gonna have to be on. There's like 1,000 things to talk to you about. I think today what this will end up being is just a cursory exploration into the world of Adam Pinales.
You see my prospector?
Episode 1.
Yeah, episode 1. It's the
94-part trilogy.
Yeah, the Pinales files.
I can't get over these signals. These are absolutely amazing.
And how did you start just building the signals? Like, what was it about it that you just decided, I can't find any that commercial ones, and that's it, I'm building them, period, end of sentence?
Yeah, all the signals that are out there are usually like a US&S style signal, and most of them, especially in N scale, the ones that are really good looking out, like the one Peter Borchert was building, the kits are made by I can't think of the name right. Century Foundry, which is by Fine Scale Miniatures, I believe. But anyhow, the only ones you can really get that look good are Searchlight style. Well, the Rio Grande, one, they didn't use US&S signals, and two, they did use Searchlight signals, but they used a lot of the tricolor signal heads, and to get those done correctly, I had to build my own. And at first I was cutting them. Their signals were done by GRS, and which were the two big signal manufacturers of the day. And when I started cutting the signals out, I was cutting them out of brass, and I was cutting individual signal heads out of brass and just soldering everything up. But I ended up teaching myself how to do etchings, and so I started etching everything.
You make me feel like a completely useless lump of poop.
Absolutely amazing.
It's
Like I'm looking at these, and if you didn't know they were N scale, you'd figure, wow, those are pretty cool. But knowing that they're N scale and how teeny tiny they be, it's amazing.
How long does it take you to build a signal?
Today or when I started?
Yeah, let's start. Okay, when you started, how long did it take you, and how fast are you now?
When I started, it took me about an hour and a half or so, and today it takes me about a half hour, 45 minutes.
Wow. Yeah, because you got it down pat the way you want to do it and all that stuff.
You can't go too fast. I mean, you get to the point where you go too fast and you end up screwing something up.
Well, sure, exactly. Yeah, trust.
Yes.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, trust me. Compared to the rest of us, you're going at warp speed. But you know, you're like in the USS Enterprise, and the rest of us are on a biplane at the speed you're going. Half an hour to build these things. Give me a break.
I was going to say, I saw a picture of what looked like a resistance soldering unit. That's what you're using for them?
You know what? I thought that would be super cool to use on these, but I don't. I actually don't like the resistance machine.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I use just a regular Weller pencil tip soldering iron on those.
Okay.
I really thought you know what's funny is I bought that Weller a long time ago. One of my friends is like, dude, you got to have one of these with what you do and this and that. You got to have one. And I bought it and I used it once and I was like, I didn't really get the hang of it. But all of a sudden one day I just said, you know what, I'm going to use this thing. And I was building switches with it. Man, I started flying along. I was like, holy crap, why haven't you been using this for ever? I mean, it was like $400. I was like, damn, this thing's just sitting there I might as well sell it. And right before I decided to sell it, or I was like, I'm going to try to use it before I sell it. And then I'm glad I didn't sell it because I love that thing. I use my resistance machine pretty much just for building switches and doing wiring.
Okay, so which one is the $400 one? The resistance one?
Yeah. It's the granddaddy of the American Beauty line. It's the what is it? The Super Chief 250.
All right, so our buddy Kevin.
Hence the Santa Fe loco on it.
Yeah.
So, Ben, this is you're actually, you know what? Don't take this the wrong way, but you're annoying me because there's too much to talk about. Holy mackerel, Bruce! We're already 45 minutes into this thing.
I know. We've talked about signals and helixes
and nothing. We've talked about nothing.
That's a show.
Yeah, that's a show. Yeah, what's the show going to be about? It'll be about nothing.
It's going to be a hit.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I still haven't found any photos of this prospector train. I don't think we should pass over that. So let's finish up with the soldering iron. So you like the resistance soldering iron for track and wiring.
Yeah.
And you like the Weller soldering iron to make your signals.
Yes.
Okay.
I like, my Weller, my pencil tip is my decoder installs, LED, soldering and signal soldering and just, really, really fine detail stuff I'd use with my pencil tip.
And it's one of the adjustable temp ones?
Yeah. But it's always, it doesn't need to be because I have it on full blast all the time. So
you could have saved yourself $40 right there.
Probably.
How much do one of those pencil tip ones cost?
Well, I just burned one up, so I replaced the soldering iron itself, and I think it was like $22. But I think the whole unit is like $50.
Okay, yeah. All right. So what were you going to say?
It's not bad. It's worth the money.
All right. Well, after this, I'm going to be sending you a headset because you're going to be talking to us on a far more regular basis than this. Is ridiculous. You know what? Now we're getting to a point where I don't know why, but I'm just getting agitated talking to you.
Don't take Bruce's job.
So I still haven't found any photos of the prospector train. So let's not.
December 31st is when I posted the last prospector photos, and I also posted a video of it.
Okay, December 31st. All right, I'm going to go look. I'm going to scroll down the page so I can see that. So let's not blow by that. So you 3D printed the Prospector train, and you made 10 sets.
Uh-huh.
And so you had to paint them and everything.
Yeah.
And you sold these, and how much did you sell each set for?
$1,000.
Wow. And who did you get to 3D print them for? You Shapeways?
The first couple sets were done by Shapeways, and then I ended up using a friend of mine's 3D printer.
Okay, and you did the F units and everything, or just the just the cars?
The F units are the FTs are from Intermountain, but all the cars are 3D printed, except on my set, the baggage car there, the first car is scratch built. And because I did that before I started 3D printing, and then the rest of them are 3D printed.
Wow.
Jeez.
And so your friend's 3D printer, how fast could he print a car?
Oh, I think it was about, I don't know because I wasn't there, but I'm thinking that it was probably about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, somewhere in there.
Okay. And something else I want to talk about. Okay, I'm watching the video now as it goes by. Man,
I'm drooling over the pictures.
Yeah. Where's the pictures?
The post from December 31st.
Oh.
Just below.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Holy mackerel.
Now, see, that set there is the pilot set. Those decals I had to cut by hand, and after that I had decals made. But those ones right there, I cut using locomotive decals from N Scale and HO to make those.
All right. Well, let's give a shout out.
Right. So I got. Okay, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm
I was just figuring you say you rode the train, so one night you were taking quiet time of 2 or 3 seconds and sat bolt upright in bed, said, I got to build me a model of the Prospector and 3D print it.
It's been a thing since I was young. It's always been one of my favorite trains, and I've got pictures of them. I used to have pictures of it hanging up in my room, and I just loved it. But nobody ever did it. Division Point did it in brass in HO scale, and when they did that, it was just beautiful. And when I saw the model of that, I was like, I have to do it. Right. I have to do this now. I don't care what it takes. I was at the point of almost commissioning somebody to do them in brass. But one of the coolest things that was said to me is I had a friend of mine, or a guy that I met who's become a friend of mine, that bought a set, and he had a set of Division Point brass ones, and he told me that when he unboxed his N scale set, even he knew they weren't brass, but he told me they looked just as good to him as the Division Point ones, which made my day.
Yeah, and you say you rode this back in the day, sometime.
No, I never rode this train. This train was 19, or it was mid 40s. It was wartime.
All right, and it ran from where to where?
Salt Lake, or Denver to Salt Lake and back. It was a nighttime train. It was the nighttime counterpart to the California Zephyr.
Oh, okay.
So the cool part about these two, the cars on these, is the Rio Grande didn't have it. This was coming to when streamlining the passenger cars was becoming really, really popular, and the Grand didn't have the money really to go buy brand new streamlined cars. So what they did is these are heavyweights that they just sheathed over to make them look like they were streamlined. So in all reality, they were heavier than heavy. They were really heavy, but they were just old heavyweights that they made look like modern streamlined cars.
Yeah. So the route from Salt Lake City to Denver was 570 miles. That would be who would be somebody to make this would be Fred Hill at Stagecoach. No, what's he called? What does he call Fred Hill's business? He built. That's all he does is brass. Don't tell me. I know it's Fred Hill, and I know the word stage isn't. Or Coach Yard. That's what it's called. Coach Yard.
Gotcha.
Yeah. He'd be another one to make this. People would go nuts for that train in brass.
Yeah. Yeah, I would be happy with it. I like the one I've got, especially since I can look at it and say I built the whole thing.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. No, don't get me wrong. Like I'm blown away. You know what, Adam? I'm going to ask you this question completely out of order, but you've met a lot of people now through social media, right? Over the last 5 years, say.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Am I crazy, or is this hobby not going to just go nuts and explode?
It is as we speak, man. Like it's getting crazier and crazier every day.
Yeah, exactly, because it's so easy for everybody to connect.
It's true, and I know that's a common theme in your in the podcast, and it gets me thinking every time because 90% of the time when I listen to AML, it's usually when I'm driving to or from work, and or if I'm working on the layout. And most of the time when I'm driving, I get thinking about it. It's like it really is kind of crazy how the social networking has opened it up as it is, and there's times that I kind of miss the good old days at the hobby shop when it was like Cheers.
Yes.
And everybody came in and hung out for a minute and bought the magazine. And I mean, when somebody walked in, I remember my dad, when a guy would walk in, you knew exactly what he wanted and you already had it already out for him. And as soon as he walked in, he just pulled it up and put it on the red,
Yeah.
And whatever it was, whether it was a magazine that just came out or a car that they ordered or something that just came out that you knew that they'd want. I mean, he knew when he'd come in and whoever it was. And I miss those days, but I mean,
yeah, like
2000 pretty cool, man. I mean, it's a hell of a time we're living in.
Yeah. So your dad ran a hobby shop?
Yeah. I grew up in a hobby shop.
How cool is that?
Yeah. So his birth father, his parents got divorced, and then he started hanging out in, what was your dad's shop called?
It was called Well Trained.
Well Trained, and that was in Salt Lake, wasn't it?
It was in Provo.
Utah. Okay, well, it's close. It's in the right state. Come on now, don't be giving me too hard.
Yeah. You're within 50 miles.
Yeah, exactly. I was within 50. And so then you started hanging out in the shop, and then your mom and your dad got together, and away you went, and the rest is history.
Pretty much, yeah.
You'll have to listen to episode 99 again, Bruce.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that. I listened to it, and I obviously missed that bit.
Well, you know what I was thinking the other day? We do 52 shows a year, basically 52 shows a year, not counting the product news and the odd special one that we run. And they're about an hour and a half each.
Yeah.
So that's 150. We're doing almost 200 hours worth of podcasts in a year. So it's a little hard to remember everything that we talk about.
I know. Well, I remember when you did that. So, oh, really?
Okay. Yeah. I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
The only thing I really remember is the green room is full of something.
Yeah.
We'll get that looked after first thing in the morning.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, no, as of this episode, we've graduated from the green room's full of shrimp to now it's just full of something, and we don't know what it is. Things have taken a really nasty turn.
We can catfish with it, though. I can tell you that.
Yeah, what was that? I was listening to that. Yeah, cat. Let's see. Okay, so we talked about the prospector train. What did I do? And then we talked about the signals on end scale.
Yes.
What should we talk about next?
No,
I remember. We started talking about ESU. That's where it was, and that's how we got onto the prospector train. So how did you end up with being an ESU dealer?
Well, there was nobody. All the decoders kind of dried up around here, so it come to find out that nobody was really actually dealing ESU. So I just decided to do it. I was like, well, it was kind of interesting because I do a lot of decoder installs or I have done a lot of decoder installs for the few hobby shops that are in town. And it got to the point where I was like, man, if I was just actually getting these decoders on my own, I'd probably make couple extra bucks.
Right.
I might as well be making the money on that too. So I just put in the application and, gave them the information that they wanted, and away we go.
So just so everybody knows, you go to Facebook and it's Prospector Models, and it'll pop right up for you. You got 101 people that like it right now. So let's see if we can get that up. And is this what you're going to stick with, or do you think you'll build a website or anything, or you just stick with this?
No, I don't want to get super crazy with it. I want to kind of keep it limited because every time I've ever advertised anything I do, I can't keep up.
Right.
And so I just kind of want it to be like that little underground place to go if you want, a good deal on a decoder.
Okay, so don't anybody go to Prospector Models and just
Don't go there. Don't go there. It's not worth your time.
yeah,
Probably your money's better somewhere else.
yeah. I never even mentioned it.
But no. But if you do really want to actually the best deal anywhere on ESU products, then you definitely do want to go there, because I'm not in it to make money. The ESU thing is they're the best sound decoders out there, bar none. I think they have some of the brightest, nicest lighting effects as well. And there's no reason that anybody that wants one shouldn't be able to have one. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not in it to get rich or make any serious money off of it. Just enough to take care of my time running to the post office and back. So that's the place to get them. If you want ESU, Prospector Models is the place to get it.
All right, that's so now we've changed our mind again. So now you can go to Prospector Models on.
Yeah, it's just kind of a cool side thing that I've got going. What's nice about it is it doesn't really take a ton of my time, and so I can sell as many decoders as people want. It's nice to be able to supply somebody with a quality piece of equipment for the hobby.
Yeah, and do you have a price list anywhere, or they just contact you and tell you what they need, and then you send them a price?
Yeah, just shoot me a message. Most of the decoders are, just a little bit above wholesale. I mean, I'm like I said, I'm not making much money off of them. They're, I pretty much beat every price on that anywhere you can find on the internet. So, if you find a price that's cheaper than mine, then you better take it, because I can't go any cheaper, because otherwise I'd be paying you to take it.
And okay, I'm going to ask a point blank question here, and I don't care if it's a proper question to ask or not. And ESU has no problem with that you're selling them at such a low price.
Well, they haven't yelled at me yet, so
okay.
Until they do, or if they do, then we'll deal with that. But until anything, like, if I get in trouble, then I get in trouble. We'll raise the prices to what they want. But until then, I've been selling decoders like crazy. So,
now, how many decoders do you think you've sold so far?
Oh, well, it kind of slowed down because they're switching over to the version 5 right now, and I'm right in the middle of it. So, like, they really don't have anything in stock, and I've got a bunch of orders for the version 5 decoders when they come out, that are gonna, I'm hoping to be one of the first ones to get them, because I've got quite a few on order. And but they're right when I first started selling decoders, man. I probably sold, I think, right around $2,500 decoders a week.
Wow.
That's probably about 30 decoders a week.
Holy mackerel! So when did you start?
Oh, not too long ago. It was probably right there at the end of January.
All right.
Or mid January, I think.
No, that's just selling the decoder. That's not doing an install as well, is it?
Yeah, I haven't done, the only installs that I've been doing lately are mostly a few local guys, and then I had one guy drop off about 10 brass models for me to do.
How long does it take you to do an install?
It depends on the locomotive, but what it really depends on is what kind of lighting they want. If they want a lot of lighting, then that can take a little bit of time. But if it's just a simple install, 20, 30 minutes.
Okay, so can you give us the layman's description of what's going to be different about version 5 to version 4, or what's going to be so good about version 5?
The version 5 decoders have a lot more memory in them and more sound channels. And the big thing for that is going to open up the steam market, I think, because before they only had 5 or 6 channels, and with steam locomotive has way more sounds than 5 or 6 going on at the same time.
Right.
So I think that's what the big kick's going to be, is going to be able to produce higher quality sounds and more of them.
Okay, and that's really a crazy new part of the hobby. Eh? I mean, Bruce and I, just this past weekend, by coincidence, Bruce.
Yes.
We were working on JMRI. We were putting JMRI on my iMac so I could play with it, and
on his pie Sprague.
On my pie Sprague that Martin Jenkins provided to us. If you want a pie Sprague, contact Martin Jenkins in Australia. It's really hot there, Bruce.
Yes, at times it can be.
Yeah, Martin just constantly complains about how hot it is. So anyways, we grabbed
It's also tomorrow there, too.
It's also tomorrow there, so you can find out what's going to happen tomorrow if you call him. And we grabbed a couple of my locomotives, which had Wangro decoders in them, which are like, Jim Scores from NCE said they're like antiques.
Yeah, he said he stopped making them in 98 or something like that.
Yeah. And so we threw those under. So then we came up with the brilliant idea that we're going to get Kaylee Zhang. I'm going to send a couple of locomotives to her, and she's going to put some fancy dancy ones in there. So I'll have to get her to put ESU ones in.
Yeah, if you want sound, I mean, the best here, and I know you'll like this because I know you like the proto throttle. I'm pretty sure that the proto throttle and ESU are like hand in hand. I think the features are set up to work hand in hand with each other.
Yeah, I think both ESU and Soundtracks have embraced proto throttle with open arms.
Yeah,
they understand the quality of that product. Have you seen or had the opportunity to deal with the proto throttle at all?
Not yet, but I plan on picking up a few of them. That's for sure.
Okay, you hear that, Scott Thornton? He's picking up a few of them, buddy. You are going to be way.
Scott just has no idea.
Scott has no idea what he's created. Scott and Mike Peterson's just sitting there going, "Buddy, what have you done here?" And Scott's going, Do you think we'll sell 100? 100 a week, maybe, buddy. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna start off with 2 of them for sure, and if they work out as well as I think they're going to, I'll get 2 more. I'd like to have 4 of them here on the railroad.
Wow,
we've already chewed up an hour.
Yeah. Can I digress?
Absolutely.
And I've been scrolling through pictures, and I see a bunch of super fancy steam locomotives sitting on carpet. I assume those are all G scale.
On carpet?
It looks like they're sitting on a carpet.
Yeah, I saw those.
Oh, yeah. Is it that they all kind of lined up?
Yeah, there's a brass one and a bunch of others.
Yeah.
And
before you go on, Adam, I digressed too, Bruce. But I thought if I talk about this, we're never going to get in and stay in any kind of order. But I do appreciate I'm with you on this one. Go ahead, Adam.
There's just so much.
I know. Go ahead, buddy. Lay it on us.
What do you want?
Well, what's it a photo of?
Explain what we're looking at.
Explain, Lucy.
These are from July 3rd, 2018.
Oh, okay.
The first picture, there looks like there's a couple, one with a big wedge plow sitting on a wooden box.
Oh, that's that. Yeah, we were actually taking insurance photos.
Oh,
there you go.
Then there's 2 on the carpet next to the ones on the wooden box.
And are these the ones that run outside?
Yeah, these are the 1 to 20 scale stuff.
Is that G scale, 1 to 20?
It's actually F scale.
I knew that. I was just testing you.
It's F scale that runs on G gauge.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things. The gauge stays the same and the scale changes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So these are all narrow gauge. That's their big love in the outside railroad and all that is narrow gauge, isn't it?
Narrow gauge stuff. Yeah, that's where it's at.
And so so this is F scale. Like is one of them brass? Is the one of them looks like
all brass.
They're all brass.
They're all brass.
Of course.
Did you do the paint jobs on them?
On 3 of them, 4
Wow.
most of them, and the ones that are painted are getting repainted to better. Mostly because I like my paint.
Okay.
Wow.
And what do you use for painting?
On these, since they're outside a lot, I use automotive paint.
Okay.
And can you make headway with automotive paint on such a small project?
Yeah, I just thin it down. I mean, I just use it's the same idea. It's a urethane acrylic. It has a lot of UV protection in it because it's on cars, So,
right.
And I just thin it down and just shoot it light.
You know what's going to happen is one day you're going to come home and there's going to be a Harley Davidson electric glide in a big box sitting in your driveway.
Oh, yeah, I do complaining on motorcycles. I'll shoot you some pictures of some of the ones I've done this year.
Don't do that, or it actually will end up in a
It
box.
will happen. Because also we have a delivery from a Strang.
Yeah.
And if that happens, don't call the cops or anything. It's a legit thing. It
Yeah,
won't be a bomb or anything.
Yeah, exactly. Little Mike Wachowski.
I've done quite a few people. I do ghost skulls are kind of my thing. I
Really?
like them. Yeah.
Well, here's something else where.
Oh yeah, I remember that also from episode 99.
Yes.
I was kind of.
Okay, I'll ask a question between 99 and this one. Is there anything you do we haven't covered?
Oh yeah, if we get to the full size steam, that's what I'm excited about. But I'm already sensing that will not be happening in this episode.
No, I'm thinking that'd be about 3 episodes from now.
Yeah. After we're done with this episode, then I'm going to go to my supplier and send him one of the headsets, and then when he gets the headset, then we'll start again.
Perfect.
So yeah.
So I am cool enough to get one.
What's that?
I am cool enough to get one.
Oh, you are definitely.
You're beyond cool to get one of these puppies. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. You're definitely cool enough to get one.
I guess what color do you want?
Well, he doesn't get to decide the color.
Oh, okay. I thought we might
settle down. He can choose all he wants, but I'm still keeping track. I'm still the.
Okay, that's true.
Yeah, that's the only problem is this thing grows, and people are going to have to kind of realize I've only ever been in charge, so I don't think that'll ever stop. Okay, I'm going to tell a story now.
Go.
That does have nothing to do with what we're talking about, but what we just talked about, it does have. So my son got a new job with at my buddy's business where he sells recreational vehicles. My buddy loves them. My son loves the job. Everybody's happy. And my son and I have 10 sets of Leaf tickets every year, Toronto Maple Leafs. So we go to all the games, go to like 10 games a year. And my son says to me about, I don't know, a month ago, he says, Dad, he says, do you mind if I took Joe one night? I took one of our sets of tickets and I took Joe one night, which is his immediate boss. And I went, no. And I'm thinking inside my brain, I'm going, yeah, I do mind, but it's your kid and he's trying to do the right thing. And I'm like, okay. So then, of course, I'm friends with Joe. So I go in and I was like, I take the tickets in and I said to Peter, I said, let's sit down in Joe's. So we sat down in Joe's office and I said, Joe, I said, I'm holding up the tickets. And I said, I don't like giving up these tickets. I don't like giving up my tickets. I said, unless my son can't go or I can't go or something. And I said, but when I started my business, and I've been self-employed since my mid-20s, I said, by the time I got to 30, my early 30s, I realized that if my employees wanted to suck up to me, I was okay with that. I had no problem with my employees wanting to suck up to me. So I said, Joe, I'm giving these tickets to my son so that he can suck up to you. I got no problem. I said, I can't argue with it. It's something I've lived by. All right. So let's get back to this. So F scale. How much do these how much is this picture where you're taking photos for insurance? How much are these, how much was the total of the total of all these locomotives?
I don't even know. They on average between $2,000 and $4,000 a piece.
Wow. And what were you gonna say?
Most of them, I mean, we definitely didn't pay that much for them because a lot of the ones we got, my dad used to be set up with Berlin and Accucraft, and he did a lot of the repair work because those things don't ship well, and a lot of them got damaged. So my dad did a lot of the repair work, a lot of the brass work on them to fix them, and which is how we ended up with as many as we did. And so fortunately, we weren't into it as much as they're worth.
Right. They came through customers, and you acquired them this way and that way, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, a lot of them came direct from both either Accucraft or Berlin for him to fix. And my dad was always a wheeler dealer, so he'd be like, "Well, I'll fix 3. I want 1," or something like that. So,
and are either of these companies still in business?
No. Well, AccuCraft is still around, but they haven't produced anything like this in 1-20 for a long time. Like it's been 10 years, 10 plus years.
Okay. So so we're calling it F scale.
Uh-huh.
So how is that railroad going?
It's running. It's fun. Have you seen some of the videos?
I looked at a couple of the videos, yeah. And it seems to be
Yeah,
going.
it was featured on my digital Christmas card this year.
Yep, yeah. Yeah, no. Yeah, like it looks like is it a lot of work? Kind of some sort of a lot of work? Like is it hard to maintain it?
I kind of built mine to a higher level of detail than most people build their outdoor railroads to. Like if I could do it again, I wouldn't use as small as rail as I did. I used the smallest rail I could get in aluminum, which was 115 thousandths. It was code pretty much. No, sorry, 215. It's code 215 thousand. So it's code 215. If I could have done it again, I'd do code 250, just to give it a little bit more rigidity.
Rigidity.
Yeah, because I've been having a deer problem. The deer keep coming down, and when they step on it, they bend it.
Oh.
And I'm assuming when you go out in the morning and you see the rail is bent, you go, "Oh dear."
Yeah, I get something like
Yeah.
And okay, so they bend it, and then you got to that would be a and
it's kind of a pain. But
you live in a subdivision, don't you?
yeah, but it's a subdivision in the mouth, kind of in the mouth of the canyon. So it's the deer come down. These deer are so docile. Like these things are. I mean, they live in everybody's backyards. I mean, they're not scared of you at all. You can walk right up to them. I mean, half of them were born here. You know.
Yeah. And so do you run it like how do these locomotives run? Are they run just strictly like DC or DCC or?
They're all DCC, but they are a radio controlled battery powered DCC.
Oh, okay, so that's neat. So it's like the rail,
like dead rail.
Yeah,
dead rail.
And that works pretty good, does it?
Oh, I've never had an issue. I haven't had one issue with it yet.
And who manufactures that system?
You can use any decoder as long as it has the amps are high enough. So all three of the major decoder brands, which would be TCS, Soundtrax, and ESU, they all make a 5 amp decoder. But the battery and the radio come from a company called Airwire, which is CVP products.
Okay. This hobby's just going nuts, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going nuts.
Yeah.
And if it is,
what's that?
If it isn't, I am.
No. I mean, you're a perfect example of what the hobby's doing to people. I mean, you're like, how old are you now?
36.
Yeah, like you're a 36-year-old guy. Like I know lots of guys your age that are in the hobby and enjoying the hobby, and because of the electronics and the technology and the sophistication that's starting to happen in the hobby, it's sucking people in because it's, you can still, if you're, lots of people I know play video games, but this kind of stuff sucks you in because it's so interesting. Like I say, Bruce and I were installing JMRI, and then we had two crappy little, we got 2 locomotives with really old decoders, but it was fun. You're running it off the computer, you're turning the lights on and off, and now the first thing we thought of is we're going to send the locomotives away and get 2 really fancy decoders installed in it, and so just so you can play with that part of it.
Yeah, there's so many aspects to it now. I mean, there always has been. There's always been a lot of aspects to it, but it's just added. It's not like anything changed or was taken away. It's been added to.
Yeah,
and then you still got all the same stuff needs to be done, but there's just more ways to do it and better ways. And it's insane. It really is.
Yeah, it's insane almost what we're going. It's like I just don't see how the hobby can't grow. Like we might even go through a bit of a patch where it doesn't necessarily grow, but the more people, like I met a guy, I think I just published that interview today, or maybe a couple weeks ago, I don't remember. But anyways, I met a guy at Springfield Show, and he was a commander in the Navy, Eric Van Diver, and if he's listening to this right now, he's probably driving either to Boston or towards Virginia. And he found us. He was looking for snowplows and found a CN snowplow, a video about a CN snowplow, and 4 or 5 years ago, and became a model railroader. I mean, I think the hobby's we're just gonna go nuts here. And like you and Walker Embry are close friends, and you found each other on social media. Like, I agree with you. The whole thing about the hobby shop, like I have very, very fond memories of my favorite hobby shop, which was George's Trains on Mount Pleasant Avenue in Toronto, just down the street from where my dad was born. And I have unbelievably fond memories of the 60s and 70s of being in that shop. But this is just a different time, and a whole new element is being added to it where you're being able to be connected with all sorts of people.
Well, just look how many people we've met through this little podcast.
Oh, yeah, it's staggering, really. It's just, I think the last 4 years of my life, or 4.5 years of my life in the podcast has been probably the most fulfilling years I've ever had in the hobby.
It's definitely cool to, meet other people and stuff. Well, you know what? The funny thing that's kind of tripped me out is how many people that I actually knew that you've interviewed that I knew prior to, even before. Like, I guess it was with social media when it first really, because you remember the old Yahoo groups. I guess that was social media.
Yeah.
But I scrolled back and seen that you interviewed old Bernie Kempinski.
Yeah.
I remember when I've been talking with him online since the late 90s.
Yeah, exactly. Since you were a teenager.
Yeah. Yeah, and he actually did he made some stuff for my railroad. Actually, I just barely got.
Oh, really?
I've got some tunnel. He did some tunnel portals for me.
Oh, cool. That's cool.
That's one I like doing. I like that. I like having friends that are really good at doing certain things and incorporating their work into my layout as well.
Do you have any friends that like produce a podcast that you can listen to while you're driving to work?
I do. I do all the time.
There you go. You're perfect. I think we can call each other friends.
Oh, so yeah. Sorry.
All right. So we talked about the F scale. You're using it battery powered. It's works really great. So now, what about the 7.5 inch gauge? Let's touch on that. All right. Well, you know what we're going to do now? We're going to do Bruce. This is going to be the lightning round.
Okay.
Because we're already at a minute.
Do I need to put like 3 minutes on the clock then?
Yeah, no, you can put like 15 minutes on the clock.
Okay. Oh, that would be lightning for us. Yes, you're true.
Yeah, it would be for us. That's like that's like lightning fast. You know what I picture, Bruce? You and I in a very abstract kind of a Burt Reynolds kind of movie, buddy kind of movie. But just that we're not particularly good looking.
Also, kind of like our Welland Canal trip thing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we're going to split this last 15 minutes up into, we're going to talk about the 7.5 inch gauge, and we got to talk about your reel steam, and then I'm going to send you a headset, and then we're going to start all over again.
Cool. It'll all change.
What's that?
It'll all change by next week anyhow.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so 7.5 inch gauge that you got running around your house.
Mm-hmm. I kind of slowed down on it just because we're getting a lot of snow. I think the whole country's getting a lot of snow, so I haven't done a whole lot on it. But it's there's equipment piling up, and I'm waiting for some good weather. I'm honestly right now waiting for the bank to get off their cans because I'm building a big 1,200 square foot shop in the backyard as well to house a lot of this stuff. And I hate to even and say this yet, but it has a loft, and I'm going to build another railroad in up top. But
well, of course you are.
But aside from that, the shop is, when the shop gets up, I'm kind of holding off so I can use some of the funds I have for other things and try to peel some of the funds out of the loan I'm getting to do the shop. I'm trying to wait until that comes through to completely buy the rest of the stuff I need to lay all the track. But the road bed's in. It's been down for 1.5 years now, so it's good and compact. Me and my daughter were out there pouring concrete for the footings for one of the 2 bridges that they're going in. And I have everything dialed in my head of exactly how I want to do everything. So when it's time to do it, I'm sure it will go pretty quick.
So how much track do you have? I see some pictures there where you're pouring your driveway around it, but how much track do you have outside?
The main line is it's 600 feet.
Okay.
So it's not, but it's a good run.
Does your wife know you're doing any of this?
Shh.
Okay.
Oh no.
So is it like 600 feet point to point type thing, or a loop, or?
It's a big loop. In the backyard, the shop, one of the corners of the shop, I have designed to look like a roundhouse, and I have a turntable, A-frame turntable going in to be able to park the locomotives into the shop, and then a passing track and a loading track.
And didn't you say to me when we were talking there a couple weeks ago or a week ago that you're building, like, you got a bunch of locomotives on the go right now?
I've got 5 actually.
5 locomotives that you're building.
Yeah.
And what kind are they? Bruce, I'm exhausted. What kind are
One
they?
of them, they're all narrow gauge. They're all 2.5 inch scale. I've got a 440 an American, a 260, a little mogul. I've got another set that's a mogul, the same set, but I'm going to stretch it and do some custom work to it, custom design work, alter it to make it a 10-wheeler. And then I've got a consolidation, little 280, and then the K27, the 282.
These are all live steam?
Yes.
Wow.
And you're going to keep these all in the shop at the back?
Yeah.
See, here's the trick you have to do what Jack Ozanich did. He's modeling that same combination, like the main 2 footers, but he built a roundhouse, and one of the first things he did, he had a wood stove in it, so he loaded up the wood stove with coal, disconnected the smoke jack, so he basically ran the stove for a few days, filling the whole thing up with coal smoke, so give it that atmosphere. So there's something you can do in your nice new fancy shop, load it up with coal smoke.
I have a good feeling that will happen without trying.
So how big of a lot do you have there?
It's 3/4 of an acre. So, and I what is that, about 200 by 200 feet or so?
Yeah. Okay, so and then you got plenty of room for the shop behind the house.
Yeah.
So are you hoping to build it overnight one night when your wife is sleeping, and then all of a sudden it'll be there, kind of thing?
That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping to just have that thing just spring right up overnight. Like, honey?
Yeah. Hey, what happened?
So, I don't know. I know.
The shop fairies came. The shop
fairies.
They said if I clicked my heels and dreamt about it, it would show up.
Well, you know what?
They were right. Yes.
You know what? You got to give Tom Jacobs credit, because that's basically what he did. He took his wife on vacation, and when they were gone, the guys came in and built the shop. And
I wish I could do that, but my mentality is if I can do it, I better be doing it. I can't really have anybody else.
Well,
I sure can't pay somebody to do something I can do.
Well, absolutely. And we just have to determine what it is you can't do. So these, because weren't you working with a fella building live steam locomotives?
Yeah, a couple guys. And what's really cool is that I couldn't really talk about then, but it's happened now. And my friend Jesse from Banning Locomotive Works, he actually acquired the company Little Engines, which is the oldest producer of live steam parts and locomotives in the country.
Wow.
Yeah, they've been around for a long, long time.
They've been around for a long time, and he just bought the company from Mike Venetia, and he is now relocated to Port Angeles, Washington.
So that's where your friend is in Port Angeles?
That's where Jesse is. He's up there in Port Angeles, and just trying to get his shop up and going and getting castings rolling and parts sold. But he's doing really well. And then my other partner that we're building the K27s. These ones are cool because we're doing very minimal castings there. It's almost all CNC, full machined, which is kind of cool because most things are started with castings and such and then machined down. But these locomotives will be almost purely all machined.
And how did you? Yeah, that's right. I remember that now. And how is that going? The K27. What's the progress report on those?
We are shopping around right now to find somebody to cut out all the suspension parts, water jet, out of steel. And as soon as we get those suspension parts in, we'll have rolling chassis.
Wow.
And how did you meet Jesse, the guy that has Spanning Locomotives Works?
I was that annoying customer that just kept calling until we became friends.
Oh, okay. Kind of like I'm that annoying podcasting guy that just keeps bugging you to be on the. It's that works the best of anything.
Persistence pays off. Persistence pays off.
Persistence does pay off. All right, now we're cutting down. We're coming down the wire. We haven't even. Oh my God, we haven't even got to the full scale. What's happening with that?
So there's a project in Utah that's been going on for a couple decades now. There's a little steam locomotive. It's the designation. It's a C16 from the Denver and Rio Grande Western. Its number is 223, and it used to sit in a park in Salt Lake for a lot of years. When they retired it in the early 40s, it was moved to Salt Lake, and they displayed it. And it's been on display forever. It's got a quick history, and then without getting too much into the history, it's moved through a couple hands of caretakers that have tried to get the thing restored, and it's working its way over into being able for us to take over the project and get the thing running. I have a good friend with a machine shop that's massive that could handle this type of a project, and he's really into locomotives himself, and I've talked him into taking this project on. And so we proposed the idea to the historical society that we would donate all of the labor to get this thing done, and they immediately said yes. So we got a few things to work out. There's some weird stuff going on between the city of Ogden and the chapter right now, trying to decide exactly who owns the locomotive and what's going on. But they've gotten quite a bit of work done. The tender's completely done, the cab's done, everything that they could do in a small shop without a lot of equipment is done. And now they just really need to get the chassis going. The driver's done, cylinders done, and a new boiler, and we can put the thing back together.
And is there track where you're going to be able to run it?
No, that's another big issue is they don't. What are we going to do with it when it's done? And I've got a few plans, a few ideas. I've got some really good friends down on the Cumbers and Toltec that are in a position to be able to make decisions on letting us bring it down there, and they're actually in the middle of restoring a 10-wheeler down there, and it's coming along very nicely, and they're both the same vintage, so being able to get these two together would be a absolute dream.
Yeah, and so what kind of so how many people are like actively working on this?
Actively, I bet you there's probably 20, 25 guys, that probably show up semi-actively. Actively, I know of about 10 that get together on the weekends and when they can and get going on it. They just reached a point where they can't. Now is where the big money is, where the machining and the boiler work and that kind of stuff needs to be done, and we have the ability to do such. So we decided that if this project's ever going to get done, we probably ought to see what we can do to help them.
Yeah, and when you say we have the ability, who do you mean by we?
My friend, his name's Kerry Trammell. He owns a company called Industrial Engine and Machine. So he has a machine shop that's big enough to handle this stuff. And he's actually who I got involved very first off building live steam locomotives. He's the one that got me into machining years ago. And everything from, we've always talked about building steam locomotives and such, but we were too busy building big motors for Mustangs.
Right.
So, I mean, it's all machining. It's all kind of the same principles.
Yeah.
so it's like, well, let's just kind of shift gears a little bit and start burning coal instead of diesel or gas.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's just shift gear. Hey, well, yeah, you know what? I can see these two guys, Bruce, sitting around. Hey, let's restore full-size steam locomotives.
Sure. Yeah, we've done everything else. Why not?
It's crazy to be able to be involved in or have the opportunity to do something like this, and not only that, but have the know-how. I mean, my entire career is kind of always revolved around steam locomotives. I mean, and granted, I work for the railroad, and steam locomotives is the railroad, and we don't use steam locomotives anymore. But it's always been kind of my passion is, steam, and so I've always been around it. I've always, if I'm not building models of it, I've played with steam locomotives, or I've been, I've working on whatever steam programs I can be involved in. I've been involved in quite a few, and I've been lucky, really lucky, because I've been able to operate some of the most famous locomotives in the country, and I just it's time to do something to really contribute to the industry, and I'd love to be able to have my name on that locomotive saying that I did something good for it.
Yeah, so it's 137-year-old steam locomotives. Wow. So this is like a massive job, eh?
Yeah, it's pretty big. I mean, the locomotive itself is pretty small, but there's a lot of work to be done. The cool thing about this locomotive, it was made by Grant, and it's one of two Grant locomotives left in the country that I know of. And if we can get it running, I think the other Grant does run. I'm not sure. I haven't paid much attention to that project, but this one's cool because it will be the only class of this style locomotive that's running, and and one of three that exist. The other two are on static display in Colorado. So this, I mean, it's a pretty historical piece of equipment.
Now, here's Bruce. I think this is a good question. I'm going to ask.
Okay.
And you wouldn't be aware of this necessarily, Adam, because you don't live in other parts of the country. But do you feel like railroading in Utah and Colorado and the West and all through there has a bigger historical impact on the population than, say, other parts of the country?
I don't know. That is kind of a hard question to answer, but I think a quick answer would be it's just as integral as anything else, but it's focused on more because there's a lot of extremes here. You've got the mountain ranges that it came through. You've got the change from narrow gauge to standard gauge. You've got, I mean, the Rio Grande Railroad's iconic in of itself. It's one. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the most famous railroads in the country. There's a lot of people model it. You got reasons. I mean, it's got cool looking equipment and it goes through cool looking country. I mean, for a model, you can't ask for anything more. But as far as this year is actually kind of a huge point. It's the 150th anniversary of the Golden Spike, which is going to be a crazy celebration from what I understand.
Yeah, that will be a crazy celebration.
It just so happened to happen in Utah. I mean, I think that a lot of the history focuses on Utah because of that. A huge event in the transportation industry occurred in Utah, but it also occurred in every other state that it passed through. It just so happened, like I said, the actual event happened here. So I think that a lot of people focus on that.
Yeah, like to connect. I guess part of it too is to connect the country together. It was one thing to go across the plains, but to actually finish connecting the country together to get through the mountains was just an absolute massive job.
Right. I mean, if you look at the map, you can see it as how much ground did the Union Pacific cover in the same amount of time that the Central Pacific only covered. Not as much, because I mean they had Donner Pass to deal with, and they spent the majority of their time conquering Donner Pass, and to me that's epic. When you go over Donner Pass, even today, whether you're driving or you're taking the train, it's just realizing what these guys went through to build that railroad across that mountain is just, and the time that they did it, in the year that they did it, is astronomical.
And with the tools that they did it with.
Right.
That was all
Right.
hand labor and stuff. That's the amazing part.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's there's not much to explain. You go up to the big tunnel, it's still there, and they used it for a long time. But you go up to the big tunnel, and you walk through it, and you can actually see the pick marks in the side of the tunnel from these hand tools that they chip this thing out of the granite. And it, there's not much that you can say about it other than just wow.
Yeah, and when you say the big tunnel, give people an idea what tunnel you're talking about.
Oh, it's the one. I don't know exactly where it is, but it's one of the big tunnels. It's one of the last tunnels they chipped through.
Okay.
Get through it. It's at the top. It's right at the top of the summit, I believe, and it's pretty long and it's solid granite. And these guys just sat there and drilled and dynamited and chipped.
Yeah, back 150 years ago.
Yeah, and
Right.
it's laser straight.
And it's like you're right. You kind of figure out, like, you kind of wonder, like, how did you manage that? Like,
Yeah.
okay, I have a thought, and this will be our last discussion point, and then we'll call her a day because we chewed up an hour and 40 minutes. Is the hobby not going to grow because, as you talk about what the people did and 150 years ago in the history, like, okay, maybe most people will model modern stuff, but it's that draw and the allure of railroading that will continue. The hobby will never go away. It will change and move in different ways. But now with modern technology and when you think about the history of railroading, I think that's what's gonna, and the access now to the information. I truly think we're just about on the golden years of the hobby. We're just about to hit the best part.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. The coolest thing that I see right now with technology growing is it's the same revolution that they were going through when the railroad was growing. Is the how fast the industrial revolution came to be and passed. I mean, within 20 years, you saw locomotives being these little teeny tiny 440s to being these massive articulated locomotives. And to me, that's the same as having the first iPhone to the iPhone 8. It's how fast technology is moving right now is the same but different. It's opening up new worlds. It's opening up new ways of communicating and socializing. And in all reality, that's what the railroad did in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Is it opened up a new way of communicating, a new way of socializing, a new way of just getting together, and it exploded. Like I said, the evolution of the steam locomotive went from nothing, that's this little teeny tea kettle, to this massive superpower in not much time.
Yeah, and not much time, and like it's like the UP's getting the big boy ready and all that stuff for the celebrations, and it's just, you're right. And then we went, it's not that long ago that travel across the countries in the 40s and 50s was by passenger train, like the prospector train that you speak about, and the passenger trains of the 50s were some of the golden eras. In the 40s, it was the golden era of railroading because that's how people traveled.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I remember, and people had respect for it. People loved it. That was the only way to go. That was the way to go. People wanted to be seen on the train. They wanted to be seen because it was kind of a status thing. And, I ride the California Zephyr, or I ride the Super Chief, or the Broadway Limited, or that's how I travel. Okay, well, that's cool. Today it's there's many different ways of traveling, but that there for a while that was it. So you had to travel the best way possible. Well, that was it, and they treated you the best way possible. And fast forward to now at Amtrak, we still try to give that same type of a experience. It's a little bit harder just because society's changed. People are definitely different than they were in the 40s and 50s, and You know, people, when they rode the train in the 40s and 50s, they dressed up, they looked good, they took care of themselves. And, you know, you still see some people that do that, but it's not the amount of, you know, just overall respect for anything is it's the world's just too fast. You know, it's just gone and gotten itself in a big hurry, and everybody's trying to keep up, and they're forgetting to, I guess, smell the roses as they go by, you know?
Yeah, I think that's part. I think the one thing that was missing in this hobby was the ability to communicate with each other, and I agree with you 100%. You miss the old days of being able to go to the hobby store, but the amount of connection we've been able to have with each other is just staggering.
You know, I think that part about the hobby store is the actual personal connection. You know, you're with somebody, you're actually able to you can see them, you can talk to them in person, you know, and this is great. I love talking to you guys. I've loved everybody that I've met on social media and Facebook and all the various ways I've done so. But just like the other day, meeting Walker in person, you never beat that. You know, I mean,
no, you'll never beat that.
You know, so maybe one day I'll meet you guys. You know, I'd hope so. From what I understand, from what Peter Borchert says, is the picnics at my house in the year after Tom's, I guess.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, exactly. You better get that shop built, buddy.
It's up.
So do you plan on doing it this summer?
I plan on doing it here in the next month or so.
Oh, wow. So that's more stuff to talk about. Holy mackerel. All right.
Yeah, I really, if everything goes the way I want to, I've been saying that for a year and a half though. So things are looking really good to be able to actually start construction on this thing. I've got my plans approved by the city, everything, got my permits and everything. I'm just waiting for the financial end to come through.
All right. Well, we got to close this up. We're out of time. We are out of time.
We just started going though.
I know. That's why we got to send him a headset and start again.
Yes.
Because I feel like we didn't really cover any subject, and we touched on a lot of them.
Yes.
We did pretty good about the N-scale signals. I thought we did pretty good on that.
Those are pretty good.
No, but I thought we covered that subject pretty well. But
yes.
I feel like things started to deteriorate after we started talking about the prospector models and that, and then we were just trying to jam everything in.
Yes.
Okay, Bruce, give out that email address, please.
Our email address, so you can send us emails, and we may answer them or read them on the air for you. Modeler's Life, modelers with one L, modellerslife@gmail.com.
And Adam, do you know what your part is?
Something about a trail or rails or
happy rails to you.
That's it.
Yeah. So at the appropriate moment, you have to say with some feeling, you have to say happy rails to you.
With gusto.
Yeah,
with gusto.
With gusto.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, Adam.
Oh, time out.
Oh, yeah, we got to do the website.
You got to do the website.
We have a website, amodellerslife.com. If you go to the website. Yeah. Have you ever been there? Have you ever been there, Bruce?
I've been there on occasion.
Yeah, there's a picture of you there.
There is a picture of me. It's one of my better looks.
Actually, there's two pictures of you there.
There is too, yes.
You jammed into a teeny tiny caboose.
Jammed into Jack Ozanich's teeny tiny caboose.
We should go visit him again.
We should. He was a super nice guy.
Actually, Speed Muller had a really good idea the other night. We should, there's a bunch of layouts we could all gather together and do an operating session in Cincinnati.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. I got a feeling we've created something that is like soon going to be completely out of our control.
All right. So can I ask a question now?
Sure.
If we go to our website, what might we find there?
Well, you would find links to how to download the podcast. You'll find a link to our Patreon page, which we highly recommend that people join our Patreon page. It costs $5 a month. And if you enjoy listening to this podcast, there's a whole bunch of other podcasts on the Patreon page that you're going to enjoy listening to. So then you'll get 2 podcasts a week. And I know people don't necessarily like to pay for things, but it's $5 a month, and it gives me encouragement. The more people that join, the more encouraged I am to do a better job and keep the podcast going. And then there's all sorts of descriptions of upcoming shows that we've done and all kinds of stuff. So that's it.
Info on the crew.
Info on the crew, all kinds of stuff. All right.
Wow. It's just almost too much to comprehend.
It's too much to comprehend. But this is a golden opportunity for me to reiterate. The number one thing I concentrate on is making sure I put out a podcast every Monday and Tuesday. And everything after that becomes secondary. So I'm very thankful to all of my Patreon, especially the $10 a month guys that get a free t-shirt, that sometimes they get a free t-shirt every 10 months, and sometimes I'm a little slow, but they all get them. Eventually they all get them, because the number one thing is getting that podcast out every Monday and Tuesday. All right. Well, Adam, as the sun slowly sets over the back 40 and we close the barn doors, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
happy rails to you.
Mr. Strang's wardrobe provided by The Dashing Camper. For all your fashion and tent repair needs, trust The Dashing Camper.
It's another Lincoln Homer.